Eleanor Hayes stood in the doorway of her ranch house, watching three men ride up the dirt path toward her home, and she knew without being told that these were the men who would take everything from her. The lead rider was Vincent Blackwell, the banker from Rapid Falls, his expensive suit looking absurdly out of place against the rough Dakota landscape. Behind him rode two men she didn't recognize, hard-faced and armed, the kind of men banks hired when they expected trouble. Eleanor's hands tightened on the doorframe as her 9-year-old daughter Anna appeared beside her, sensing the tension in the air. It had been 8 months since her husband Thomas died from pneumonia, 8 months of struggling to keep the ranch running alone, 8 months of watching debts pile up faster than she could pay them. And now, with 3 days left until the final payment was due, Eleanor knew she had lost. If you love stories about standing up against injustice and finding hope in the darkest moments, subscribe now, because this journey will inspire you. Vincent Blackwell dismounted with theatrical politeness, removing his hat and offering Eleanor a smile that never reached his cold eyes. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, his voice smooth as oil, "I trust you received my letters regarding the outstanding loan balance." "I received them," Eleanor replied, keeping her voice steady. "I told you I need more time. The cattle aren't ready for market yet, and the winter was hard. I can pay you in 3 months when I sell the herd." Vincent shook his head slowly, as if genuinely sorry. "The bank has been more than patient, Mrs. Hayes. Your husband took out these loans 2 years ago with clear repayment terms. We've already extended the deadline twice. I'm afraid we cannot wait any longer." Eleanor felt Anna press against her side. She put a protective arm around her daughter's thin shoulders. "What exactly are you saying, Mr. Blackwell?" "I'm saying that unless you can produce $800 by Friday, the bank will foreclose on this property. The land, the house, the livestock, all of it will be sold to recover our losses." Vincent gestured to the two men behind him. "These gentlemen are here to inventory the assets, so we know exactly what we'll be claiming. $800 might as well have been $8,000. Eleanor had $43 hidden in a tin under the floorboards, money she had scraped together selling eggs and doing seamstress work for women in town. Even if she sold every cow, every chicken, every piece of furniture, she wouldn't reach half that amount before Friday. "This isn't right," Eleanor said, anger cutting through her fear. "Thomas built this ranch from nothing. He worked himself to death trying to make it succeed. You can't just take it, because I've had a hard year." "The law says I can," Vincent replied, his false sympathy dropping away to reveal the calculating businessman beneath. "And I will. Unless, of course, you can find someone willing to loan you the money. Though I doubt anyone in Rapid Falls would be foolish enough to bet on a failing ranch run by a widow." The two hired men dismounted and began walking around the property, making notes on clipboards, counting cattle in the distant pasture. Eleanor wanted to scream, to fight, to do something, but she felt paralyzed by hopelessness. Anna began to cry quietly, and that sound broke Eleanor's heart more than anything else. After the men left, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table with her head in her hands while Anna tried to be brave beside her. "Mama, what are we going to do?" the girl asked. "I don't know, sweetheart," Eleanor admitted. "I truly don't know." She spent that evening going through Thomas's papers one more time, desperately searching for anything she might have missed, any asset she'd sell, any solution to the impossible problem. But there was nothing. They had already sold Thomas's tools, his saddle, even his pocket watch. The ranch was all they had left, and in 3 days it would belong to the bank. Eleanor barely slept that night. She kept thinking about Thomas, about how hard he had worked, about the dreams they had shared for this place. She thought about Anna growing up without a home, about the shame of losing everything, about starting over with nothing in a world that had little mercy for women in her position. By the time dawn broke, Eleanor had cried herself dry and made peace with defeat. She was outside feeding the chickens when she saw a man approaching on foot, leading a pack horse heavily laden with bundles. He was tall and lean, dressed in buckskins and furs, his face weathered and bearded, his eyes sharp and observant. A fur trapper, Eleanor realized, probably heading to town to sell his season's catch. She watched warily as he stopped at her fence line and raised a hand in greeting. "Ma'am," he called out, his voice rough but not unkind. "I'm looking for the Hayes Ranch. Would this be it?" "It is," Eleanor replied cautiously. What's your business here? The man tied his horse to the fence post and walked closer. My name is Garrett Stone, he said. I'm a trapper. Work the mountains west of here. I was in Rapid Falls yesterday selling supplies, and I overheard some men in the saloon talking about a widow who was about to lose her ranch to Vincent Blackwell's bank. They were laughing about it, placing bets on how quickly you'd be run off the land. Eleanor felt her face flush with humiliation. I see my troubles are entertainment for the whole territory. Garrett's expression hardened. Those men are fools and cowards, he said bluntly. But that's not why I'm here. He gestured to the heavily loaded pack horse behind him. I have 47 prime pelts from this season's trapping. Beaver, fox, marten, even 2 silver wolf pelts. In Rapid Falls, they'd fetch about $900, maybe more if I bargain hard. Eleanor didn't understand why he was telling her this. That's good for you, she said carefully. The trading post will give you fair value. I'm not selling them to the trading post, Garrett said. I'm giving them to you. Eleanor stared at him, certain she had misheard. What did you say? I said I'm giving you these pelts, Garrett repeated. You take them to town, sell them to the trading post, use the money to pay off Blackwell, and save your ranch. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if he was discussing the weather rather than offering away a fortune. Eleanor felt dizzy. Why would you do that? She asked. You don't even know me. That's an entire season of work. Months of risking your life in the wilderness. Why would you just give it away? Garrett was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. Because 15 years ago, Vincent Blackwell's bank did the same thing to my family that he's doing to you now. He said finally, my father had a small freight business in Montana. One bad winter, he fell behind on a loan. Blackwell foreclosed, took everything, left my family with nothing. My father never recovered from shame. He died 2 years later, and my mother followed him 6 months after that. I was 17 years old, and I swore that if I ever had the chance to stop Blackwell from destroying another family, I would take it. Eleanor felt tears welling up. I can't accept this, she whispered. It's too much. You earned those pelts. You need that money. I need it less than you do, Garrett said. I live in the mountains, ma'am. I don't need much money to survive. But you and your daughter, you need this ranch. And I'll be damned if I let Blackwell win again. Anna had come out onto the porch and was watching this exchange with wide eyes. Mama, she said quietly, maybe we should listen to him. Eleanor looked at her daughter, at this brave little girl who had already lost so much, who deserved a home and a future. She looked at Garrett Stone, this stranger who was offering her everything with no expectation of return. Every instinct told her this was too good to be true, that there had to be a catch, that people didn't just give away fortunes to strangers. But looking into Garrett's eyes, she saw only honesty and a deep, old pain that matched her own. If I accept this, Eleanor said slowly, how do I repay you? How do I make this right? You don't, Garrett replied. You keep your ranch. You raise your daughter. You make the life your husband wanted for you. That's payment enough. Eleanor felt something break open inside her chest, some dam that had been holding back hope. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take the pelts to town first thing tomorrow, Garrett said. Say you'll march into that bank and pay off every cent you owe, and tell Blackwell that the Hayes Ranch isn't for sale. A smile broke across Eleanor's face, the first real smile she had managed in months. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll do exactly that. Garrett returned her smile, and Eleanor saw that beneath the rough exterior was a genuinely kind man. Good, he said. Now, if you don't mind, I've been traveling for 3 days straight. Would you happen to have a spot in your barn where I could rest for the night? I'll be gone by morning. Won't trouble you any further. You'll do no such thing, Eleanor said firmly. You'll come inside, have a proper meal, and sleep in a real bed. It's the absolute least I can do. Over dinner that evening, Anna peppered Garrett with questions about trapping, about living in the mountains, about the animals he encountered. He answered patiently, his gruff demeanor softening in the presence of the excited child. Eleanor watched them and felt something she hadn't expected to feel again, the warmth of having a man at her table, of conversation and laughter filling her home. After Anna went to bed, Eleanor and Garrett sat by the fire drinking coffee. "Tell me about your husband," Garrett said. "What kind of man was he?" Eleanor found herself talking about Thomas, about how they had met in St. Louis, about the dreams they had shared, about building this ranch together from absolutely nothing. She told Garrett about Thomas's death, about the impossibly hard months since, about the guilt she felt at not being able to maintain what he had worked so hard to create. "You've done more than maintain it," Garrett said when she finished. "You've survived. You've kept your daughter safe and cared for. You fought against odds that would have broken most people. Your husband will be proud of you." "I hope so," Eleanor said quietly. She looked at Garrett across the firelight. "Tell me about your family. About what happened after you lost everything." Garrett's expression grew distant. "I left Montana that same year," he said. "Couldn't stay in a place that held so many painful memories. I went north, learned trapping from an old Metis man who took pity on an angry kid with nowhere to go. Spent the last 15 years in the wilderness, mostly alone, moving from one trapping territory to another. Never stayed anywhere long enough to put down roots. Never let myself care about anything enough to risk losing it again." "That sounds lonely," Eleanor observed. "It is," Garrett admitted, "but it's also safe. Can't lose what you never have." Eleanor considered this. "Is that why you're giving me the pelts?" she asked. "Because it lets you hurt Blackwell without having to care about what happens after." Garrett looked surprised, then thoughtful. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I'm tired of running. Tired of living like I'm already dead just to avoid getting hurt again." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Eleanor spoke again. "Stay," she said. "What?" Garrett looked confused. "Stay here after tomorrow," Eleanor clarified. "At least for a few days. The ranch needs work. Repairs that I haven't been able to manage alone. I can't pay you, but I can provide meals and a place to stay. And honestly, after what you're doing for us, I'd like the chance to at least offer you friendship." Garrett seemed to wrestle with this. "I'm not good at staying in one place," he said. "Maybe it's time to learn," Eleanor suggested. After a long moment, Garrett nodded slowly. "A few days," he agreed, "just to make sure everything settles with the bank. Then I should probably get back to the mountains." The next morning, Eleanor loaded the pelts carefully into her wagon, while Garrett secured them with rope. Anna sat between them on the bench seat, practically vibrating with excitement as they set off for Rapid Falls. The 15-mile journey took 3 hours, and Eleanor spent most of it rehearsing in her mind what she would say to Vincent Blackwell. She had spent so many months feeling powerless, watching helplessly as her world crumbled. But today was different. Today, she held the means to fight back. When they reached Rapid Falls, Eleanor drove directly to the trading post. The owner, a weathered man named Henry Crawford, examined the pelts with growing amazement. "These are exceptional quality, Mrs. Hayes," he said, running his hands over a silver wolf pelt. "Where did you acquire them?" "A friend provided them," Eleanor replied, glancing at Garrett, who stood quietly in the corner. "I need to sell them today. What can you offer?" Henry did calculations on a piece of paper, his pencil scratching numbers. "For the entire lot, I can give you $940, he said finally. "That's top price, more than fair." Eleanor felt her knees go weak with relief. "We have a deal," she said. Henry counted out the money carefully, mostly in large bills that Eleanor had never held in her life. She tucked the cash into her bag with trembling hands, thanked Henry, and walked out of the trading post feeling like she was floating. Anna grabbed her hand, squeezing tight. "We did it, Mama," the girl whispered. "We're not finished yet," Eleanor replied, her voice steady now. "We still have to face Blackwell." The Rapid Falls Bank was an imposing brick building on Main Street, designed to look more impressive than necessary for such a small frontier town. Eleanor walked through the doors with her head held high, Garrett and Anna flanking her. Vincent Blackwell looked up from his desk with surprise that quickly turned to annoyance. "Mrs. Hayes," he said coldly, "I wasn't expecting you until Friday. Have you come to beg for more time?" Eleanor walked to his desk and set down her bag with a solid thump. "I've come to pay my debt in full," she said. She began counting out bills on his desk, each one landing with satisfying finality. That's $800, exactly what I owe. I expect a receipt showing the loan is paid and my property deed returned immediately. Blackwell's face went through several shades of red as he stared at the money. Where did you get this? He demanded. That's none of your business, Eleanor replied. The loan terms didn't specify where the payment had to come from. The money is legal and genuine. Accept it and give me my deed. For a moment, Eleanor thought Blackwell might refuse out of pure spite. But Garrett stepped forward, his imposing presence filling the small office. The lady paid her debt, he said quietly. You gotta honor it, or do we have a problem? Blackwell glared at Garrett with sudden recognition in his eyes. I know you, he said slowly. You're Jacob Stone's boy. The freight company family from Montana. That's right, Garrett said. And you're the man who destroyed my family. But unlike you, I believe in giving people a fair chance. Mrs. Hayes has paid what she owes. Now give her what she's owed in return. Blackwell's jaw worked silently. Then he pulled out papers, filled out a receipt with angry scratches of his pen, and retrieved Eleanor's property deed from his safe. Here, he said, shoving the documents across the desk. Your ranch is yours again. But don't think this changes anything. This territory is hard on people like you. You'll be back in debt soon enough. We'll see about that, Eleanor said, taking her deed and holding it like the treasure it was. She turned and walked out of the bank with her head high, feeling a decade of weight lift from her shoulders. That evening, back at the ranch, Eleanor couldn't stop looking at her deed, at the proof that her home was truly hers again. Anna had already told the story 3 times to the chickens, the cows, and her doll. Garrett worked on repairing the barn door, something he had noticed needed fixing that morning. Eleanor brought him water and watched him work for a moment. I can never repay you for what you've done, she said. You gave up everything for strangers. Garrett set down his tools. I told you I don't want repayment. I know what you said, Eleanor replied, but that doesn't feel right to me. Those pelts represented months of dangerous work. You deserve something in return. Then let me stay and help you with the ranch for a while, Garrett said. Not as repayment, but because I'd like to. It's been a long time since I felt useful for anything other than killing animals and surviving alone. Working here, helping you and Anna, it reminds me what it feels like to be part of something. Eleanor smiled. How long is a while? Garrett shrugged. Don't know yet. Until the work is done, I suppose. Or until I wear out my welcome. Something tells me that won't happen anytime soon, Eleanor said. Over the next weeks, Garrett became an integral part of the ranch. He repaired fences, fixed a leaking roof, helped Eleanor manage the cattle. He taught Anna how to track animals, how to read weather signs, how to move quietly through the wilderness. The girl adored him, following him around like a devoted shadow whenever Eleanor allowed it. But not everyone in the area was happy about Garrett's presence. Word spread quickly that Eleanor Hayes had paid off her debt and that a fur trapper was living on her property. The gossip in Rapid Falls turned ugly, with people speculating about the nature of their relationship, questioning Eleanor's morals, suggesting impropriety. One afternoon, 3 women from town arrived at the ranch uninvited. Eleanor recognized them. Martha Gibson, the minister's wife, along with 2 other prominent townswomen. They stood on her porch with expressions of false concern that barely masked their judgment. Eleanor, Martha said with exaggerated sympathy, we're here as friends, concerned about your reputation. This man living on your property, it doesn't look proper. People are talking. Let them talk, Eleanor said evenly. Mr. Stone is helping with ranch work. Everything is completely proper. A widow alone with a strange man, one of the other women said, shaking her head. Think of your daughter, Eleanor. Think of what message this sends. The message it sends is that I'm capable of running my ranch and making my own decisions, Eleanor replied, her voice hardening. Mr. Stone saved my home when no one else would help. He's been nothing but respectful and hardworking. If people choose to see something improper in that, the problem lies with their minds, not with our behavior. Martha's expression turned cold. We're only trying to help you, Eleanor. But if you're going to be stubborn about this, Don't be surprised when good people start keeping their distance. After they left, Eleanor found herself shaking with anger. Garrett emerged from the barn where he had been working, having clearly heard the confrontation. "Maybe they're right," he said quietly. "Maybe I should go. I don't want to cause you more problems." "No," Eleanor said firmly. "I'm done letting other people's opinions control my life. You're staying if you want to stay. And anyone who has a problem with that can mind their own business." Despite Eleanor's defiant words, the social pressure continued. Women who had previously been friendly now crossed the street to avoid her in town. The general store owner served her with barely concealed disapproval. Even the minister gave her pointed looks during Sunday services that made Anna uncomfortable. Eleanor bore it all with stubborn dignity, refusing to apologize for her choices or send Garrett away. Then one evening in early autumn, Vincent Blackwell returned to the ranch with the same 2 hired guns from before. But this time, his expression held something darker than mere business coldness. Eleanor met them at the porch, with Garrett standing silently behind her left shoulder. "Mrs. Hayes," Blackwell said, without preamble, "I'm here to inform you that I've discovered irregularities in your loan payment. I have reason to believe the money you used was obtained illegally." Eleanor felt ice flood her veins. "That's absurd," she said. "Every dollar was legitimate, earned from pelts legally trapped and legally sold." Blackwell pulled papers from his coat. "I've been investigating Mr. Stone's background," he said with false concern. "It seems there are questions about whether he had proper permits for trapping in certain territories. If those pelts were taken illegally, then they couldn't legally be sold, which means your payment is invalid and your debt remains unpaid." "That's a lie," Garrett said, his voice low and dangerous. "I had every permit required. I can provide documentation." "Then you'll need to do so within 7 days," Blackwell said smoothly. "Until then, I'm placing a hold on your property deed, Mrs. Hayes, and I'm afraid I'll need Mr. Stone to come with me to town to answer questions about his trapping activities." One of the hired men moved his hand to his gun. Eleanor realized with horror that this wasn't about permits or legality. This was Blackwell's revenge, his way of taking back what she had won. He couldn't stand being beaten, especially by the son of a man he had destroyed years ago. "You're not taking him anywhere," Eleanor said, moving to stand beside Garrett. "Then we'll be forced to involve the territorial marshal," Blackwell replied. "I'm sure he'd be very interested to hear about all of this." After the men left, Eleanor and Garrett sat at the kitchen table in tense silence. "This is about me," Garrett said finally, "about what my father owed him, about me helping you beat him. He'll destroy both of us if he can. Then we need to prove he's lying," Eleanor said. "Can you get the permit documentation?" Garrett nodded slowly. "I kept copies of everything. They're in a cache I maintain up in the mountains, about 3 days' ride from here. I can retrieve them and be back within a week." "Then go," Eleanor said. "Get what we need to fight him." Garrett left before dawn the next morning. Eleanor watched him disappear into the wilderness on horseback, carrying only basic supplies, and felt an unexpected ache in her chest. Over the past weeks, she had grown accustomed to his presence, to his quiet competence, to the way Anna laughed at his stories. The ranch felt emptier without him. The days passed slowly. Eleanor worked the ranch alone again, falling back into old patterns of exhaustion and worry. Anna asked every evening when Garrett would return. On the 5th day, as Eleanor was feeding the chickens, she saw riders approaching. Her heart leaped, thinking it was Garrett. Then she recognized Vincent Blackwell's expensive horse. He arrived with 4 men this time, all armed. Blackwell dismounted with a triumphant smile. "Mrs. Hayes," he called out, "Mr. Stone has failed to provide the required documentation within the specified time frame. Therefore, I'm exercising the bank's right to foreclose on this property effective immediately. You have until tomorrow morning to vacate the premises." "He's not back yet because you didn't give him enough time," Eleanor said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "You deliberately set an impossible deadline." "The terms were clear," Blackwell replied. "Now, my men will begin inventorying the property. I suggest you start packing your belongings." Eleanor felt the world tilting beneath her feet. After everything, after Garrett's sacrifice, after believing she had won, she was going to lose it all anyway. Anna appeared in the doorway, her face pale and frightened. One of Blackwell's men started walking toward the barn. That's when the gunshot split the air. Everyone froze. Eleanor turned to see Garrett emerging from the tree line on horseback, a rifle in his hands. The barrel pointed at the sky. He rode forward slowly, his expression harder than Eleanor had ever seen it. "Nobody touches anything on this property," Garrett said, his voice carrying clearly across the yard. He pulled up beside Eleanor and dismounted, reaching into his saddlebag. "Here are my permits," he said, pulling out a leather folder thick with documents. Every single one properly filed and stamped. "I trapped legally in designated territories with full authorization. Now get off this land before I start considering you all trespassers." Blackwell's face went purple with rage. He snatched the documents and flipped through them, clearly looking for any flaw, any excuse to reject them. But the papers were in perfect order. After a long moment, he threw the folder on the ground. "This isn't over," he said through clenched teeth. "I'll find another way to take what should be mine." "There's no other way," a new voice called out. Everyone turned to see Henry Crawford from the trading post riding up, along with 3 other respected businessmen from Rapid Falls. Henry dismounted and walked over to stand beside Eleanor and Garrett. "We've been doing some investigating of our own, Mr. Blackwell," Henry said. "Turns out several people in this territory have suspicions about how you do business. We've contacted the territorial authorities, and they're very interested in examining your lending practices. You have no proof of anything," Blackwell snarled. "Maybe not yet," Henry replied, "but we will. And in the meantime, you're going to leave Mrs. Hayes alone. Because if anything happens to her or her property, we'll know exactly who to blame. And this community is done looking the other way while you destroy good people." Blackwell looked around at the assembled men, at Eleanor and Garrett standing united, at his position crumbling around him. Finally, he mounted his horse. "This isn't finished," he said, but he rode away, his hired guns following. After they left, Eleanor turned to Garrett. "You came back," she said, her voice breaking. "Of course I came back," Garrett replied. "Did you think I wouldn't?" Eleanor threw her arms around him, not caring who saw, not caring what anyone thought. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. For the Pelts, for staying, for fighting for us." Garrett held her carefully, as if she was something precious. "I think I stopped fighting for revenge somewhere along the way," he said quietly. "Started fighting for something else. For you and Anna. For this place. For the family I didn't know I needed." Eleanor pulled back to look at him. "Stay," she said again. "Not for a while. Not until the work is done. Stay permanently. Help me build this ranch into what it should be. Let us be the family you need." Garrett's weathered face softened with emotion. "Are you sure?" he asked. "People will talk. They already do. Let them," Eleanor said firmly. "I love you, Garrett Stone. I think I have for weeks now, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared to risk caring about someone again. But I'm done being scared. Life is too short and too hard to waste time worrying about what might go wrong." "I love you too," Garrett said, his voice rough with emotion. "I have since the moment you stood up to Blackwell in that bank. You're the strongest, bravest woman I've ever known." They stood there in the yard, holding each other while Anna cheered from the porch, and Henry Crawford smiled knowingly. The sun was setting over the Dakota hills, painting everything in gold and amber. The ranch that Eleanor had fought so hard to keep, that Garrett had sacrificed everything to save, spread around them full of possibility and promise. Over the following months, Garrett became not just a helper, but a true partner. He and Eleanor were married in the spring, a simple ceremony attended by the few townspeople who stood by them and a surprising number of trappers and mountain men who rode in from across the territory to celebrate one of their own finding happiness. Anna gained not just a stepfather, but a devoted parent who taught her everything he knew about surviving and thriving in the wilderness. Vincent Blackwell was eventually investigated by territorial authorities and found guilty of fraudulent lending practices. He lost his position at the bank and left the territory in disgrace. His departure was celebrated quietly by the many families he had tried to destroy over the years. The Hayes Ranch prospered under Eleanor and Garrett's combined efforts. They expanded the cattle herd, built additional structures, and became known throughout the territory as honest, hard-working people who helped their neighbors without expectation of return. Garrett taught other ranchers trapping techniques to supplement their income during hard times. Eleanor organized the women of Rapid Falls to support families facing financial hardship, ensuring that no one else would face foreclosure alone. On their first anniversary, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Eleanor reflected on how much had changed in just over a year. From the edge of losing everything to building something stronger than she had ever imagined possible. From desperate loneliness to deep, abiding love. "I give every pelt I own," Garrett had said that first day, and he had meant it literally. But what he had actually given was so much more. He had given Eleanor hope when she had none. He had given Anna a father. He had given them both a future. And in return, they had given him something equally precious. A reason to stop running, a place to belong, and a family to call his own. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Anna came out to join them. Now 10 years old and already showing signs of the strong woman she would become. She settled between her parents, and they sat together in comfortable silence. 3 people who had all been broken in different ways, but found in each other the strength to be whole again. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late for a second chance, that real love requires courage, and that the best things in life often come from the most unexpected places. Leave a comment telling me what moment resonated with you most. Your support means everything and helps me continue bringing you these stories of hope, resilience, and enduring power of human kindness. Thank you for being here. And until next time, remember that sometimes the greatest acts of generosity change not just one life, but create ripples that touch an entire community. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never underestimate the power of choosing compassion over greed.